Hello, and welcome to From Upside Down to Right Side Up, Tips for the Transition. I'm María Tomás-Keegan, your host. And this is my continuing series of interviews in which I chat with strong, resilient women who have an inspiring story to tell. And it's a story of transformation, and they are courageous enough to share it with you. Today, my guest is Diana Gogan, who will share her story of discovering the hard way that a very successful corporate career may not equate to a very happy life. She compromised so much to achieve status, the important title, and the big bucks that she lost herself in the process. The title of this episode is Dropping the Mask. Welcome, Diana.
Oh, thank you, Maria. I'm so excited to be here. And just hearing you say that, I'm already tearing up.
Well, I appreciate that. Telling these kinds of stories is not easy to do. So I appreciate that you've chosen to share it with us.
Oh, well, thank you. And thank you for listening. And the tears really are just in recognition of all that has transpired from that point. And I think like so many of us, I started off in my early 20s, looking forward to career and, making money and making an impact and going, doing a job that you love and all those things that we, ideally strive for as we enter into the workforce. And which I did, and I had high hopes and was really eager to put my best foot forward and to grow and to become, very successful. That's how we're taught. That's what we feel is expected of us a lot of times. And so I started down that track, and started as a part-time teller on a. Well, we'll try her out and see, because she doesn't have experience, to really zooming up that ladder. And it was all thrilling and exciting. And we built a new house, and we were buying new cars, and we were trying all of those wonderful things that kind of income affords you. And so I did come to a point in my life, though, and this was 20 years in, so I was at this for a while, where I found myself crying in the parking lot before going into work. And it wasn't just a few tears, it was something that was just that heart-wrenching, rib-crushing cry, that just, the ugly cry, I guess, is the best way to say that, where you're just sobbing in the car. And after that happened a couple of times, it was like, I came up with a plan. It was like I needed to park now, clear out in the back of the parking lot, so that my peers and my bosses and, the people I worked with would not see this, because it became almost a ritual, if you will, before going into work. And it was just that time where I could just let go the anguish and the despair and the overwhelm and the feeling of my soul being crushed, and gathering up all the strength and the happy face and putting that mask on, walking into work, which I always did, and walked in and went through the day and all was good. But that became something that was happening time and time again. And I thought I was handling it really well. I thought nobody knows about this. I'm, got the happy face on. I've got the successful, happy to be here attitude, working forward, teamwork, all of that good kind of stuff. And I didn't have any idea that anybody knew what was going on. And that also carried over into home, to where, I began continuing to have to hold that mask up at home, because I didn't want to fall apart at home either. And so everything was, I thought, fine, until one day I got home from work, and my husband greeted me at the door and said, "We need to talk." And oh boy, that put that, instant pit in my stomach. I could feel my throat close, my chest tighten, all of that kind of stuff. And it was like, that was the last thing I had expected to hear. And so I was like, big gulp, and all right, let's go in and talk. And again, felt that mask kind of fortifying, in that protection mode. And what he said was, "I can't do this anymore." And I'm like, "Well, what can't you do?" And he said, "I can't live the rest of my life walking on eggshells, because I never know when you're having a good moment or a bad moment, or when you're going to get paged, because that was still the era of paging for communication, when you're going to get paged and that's just going to send you down that hole. He says, I can't do this anymore. This is not who I know. This is not the woman I love. This is not how I ever expected our relationship to go. And he says, I can't do this. It's really affecting me. And ultimately, he says, yeah, I don't think you see this, but it's affecting us. And wow, that was just like, getting hit with a ton of bricks. Completely blindsided because, I thought I had it all together. And as you can imagine, once that mask even cut down a little, I was still trying to hold it up. But even as it started to fall, the emotion and the realization and the again, it was just the emotion just rolled through, and I really began to see clearly what had been happening over the years. Yes, I had a great job. I was climbing the ladder. My peers, my mentors, my bosses and supervisors in front of me, were like, you've got it made. This is what you do. The plan was laid out. I had everything but the corner office. I was still in the cubicle at that time, so I wasn't quite in the corner office yet. But 6 weeks vacation, benefits. I was part of a group that was really high status and doing a lot of good things for the company. But I realized that through that all, and through having this conversation with my husband, I'd sold my soul.
Wow.
And
yeah, you're not the only one. You're not it's funny because I can relate to your story so well, Diana. Having been in corporate for over 30 years myself, and I spent a number of them at the end of that tenure wearing a mask every single day and feeling disconnected and pretending everything was okay and just going through the motions. So I used to think it was just me, and I heard you say the same thing, that you thought it was just you and that you thought you had covered it up. Mm-hmm. But those, at some point, it's kind of seeps through that suit of armor we put on. It seeps through, and people start to recognize that you've changed, and you may not even recognize it.
Oh, absolutely. And it was one of those things, so after we had that conversation, I realized that, the ultimatum not the ultimatum, but the choice he was giving me was, it's either our relationship and we'll figure it out, or it's your career. And he was like, I don't care what the choice is. I just need to know for me. And there was no hesitation in that. It was like, well, yeah, I'll drop the damn job. I don't even like it anyway. That's kind of what poured out. And I was like, whoa, did I say that out loud?
Yeah, be careful what you wish for, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And
well, I think we're at a point here where I would love to stop this segment, because I think you're going to start getting into the emotional stuff that you want to talk about.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
And that is a part that I'd like you to focus on in our next segment, pushing down those emotions for so long, how that affected you and how you were able to break through that.
Wonderful.
Great. So thank you very much for sharing your story, Diana. This is María Tomás-Keegan. Hold on. Watch the next video. It's going to be impactful. Till next time.